episode of the Secular Roundtable Podcast. You believe what? Religion
I don't hear
is
anything.
the cesspool of human ignorance. Are you fucking kidding me? Go back to your little corner, pray like 10 more times, and come back when you're ready to be rational.
There we go. Okay, awesome. We are live.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of Reason, religiously educated atheists, secularists, and other non-theists. What's up, GE?
How's it going?
Yeah, you ready to do this thing? It appears that we've already got a lot of chat going on.
Oh yeah,
Over here.
we've got DevShell here, Hector, Lucy, and I saw Assholes Inc. in there a second ago, so that was pretty cool.
Hopefully that's not a real company.
I don't know. It might be. I mean, I can name a few companies that I would label as assholes, but you know. But anyways, so yes, tonight we have to start off with new science, and it's not necessarily new scientific finding or anything like that, but a new a new thing in science, a new information that got kind of, I guess, leaked. But basically, Exxon, if you don't know Exxon, they're, a major gas corporation, around the world, where, they drill for oil and they turn it into gasoline. Just explaining for those that don't know. Exxon, they actually knew about climate change in 1981, according to emails. And apparently they continued to fund climate change deniers for 27 odd years. And it's actually pretty sad. If you'll read there at the very top, which actually I've got a little bit more blown up version of this. Whoops, I turned off the chat. Okay. Let's see. The email from... Wait, I think that's the wrong one. There we go. Exxon, the world's biggest oil company, knew as early as 1981 of climate change, 7 years before it became a public issue, according to a newly discovered email from one of the firm's own scientists. Despite this, the firm spent millions over the next 27 years to promote climate change denial. What do you think about that so far?
Well, I'm gonna just wait till you finish it and then I'll comment on it.
Okay. Let's see. The email from Exxon's in-house climate expert provides evidence the company was aware of the connection between fossil fuels and climate change, and the potential for carbon-cutting regulations that could hurt its bottom line over a generation ago. Basically, they had a scientist. I'm gonna stop reading it verbatim at this point. Basically, they had a scientist that was doing research into whether or not humans had an effect on our environment, and he actually came out with, information that pointed to us having a real effect. And so what they did was they buried it, and they continued to fund people that said that it wasn't actually happening. So, I mean, the scientists found something that they didn't like, and so they decided to pump money into opposite that. And so that's a really crappy thing for them to do. Now, let's see. This last part here is one of the parts that's really important. However, Exxon's public position was marked by the continued refusal to acknowledge the dangers of it, even in response to appeals from the Rockefellers, its founding family, and continued financial support of climate change denial. Over the years, Exxon spent more than $30 million on think tanks and researchers that promoted climate change denial. Can you imagine, what that money could have done if they would have just simply put it into, research into how to come up with better fuel sources?
I mean, we could have had better sources by now. And I don't know why they're so afraid of stepping outside of the norm of fossil fuels and going on to some form of renewable energy, because they basically have the monopoly. Well, not just them, but maybe a couple other companies basically have a monopoly on these fuels, and they could do the same exact thing and profit off of renewable energy. The fact that they're spending this amount of money to promote climate denial is just unacceptable. And there's no way that you can be a sensible and intelligent individual in America, but also in America, and believe this nonsense that you're being spoon fed by politicians.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you have politicians now that are quite literally bringing snowballs into houses of governing bodies, and holding it up and saying, "Hey, climate change isn't real because I'm holding a snowball." That is the kind of thought process that is currently occurring in the United States in our governing bodies, and this should definitely scare us. And I know later on we have another article that's going to scare us even more.
Well, I mean, just think about it. I mean, just a few months ago, we saw Texas underwater. We've seen every time Florida gets a coastal storm, they get like all of their coastal cities get flooded, like knee deep, ankle deep in water, and it's only going to keep getting worse every time they have a storm. And it's like, how much of this are you able to see before you realize that, hey, we're really, even if it's not us, it's happening. Climate change is happening.
Oh yes.
We know that it's us. I mean, what is it? Something like 98.7% of all peer-reviewed studies have showed that man-made climate change is a real thing. The argument was over years ago.
Oh yeah. Definitely. I think it's quite ridiculous that we're even still having the argument. I mean, you would think that after our findings with lead in our various products in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, you would think that us figuring that out would give people a clue that yes, we can have an effect on our environment. And when most of the scientific research, like not just most, but nearly all of it, points to the fact that we're fucking our planet up on a daily basis. I mean, it's just astonishing to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the other day, I actually took a moment because I work on the fifth floor of my building in downtown Baltimore. And I went up to the 12th floor and I went out onto the roof and I just looked around. And I just took a moment to absorb everything that I was seeing and think about what the city would actually look like if it were not, emitting all this pollution into the air. It was not destroying the environment with these large landfills and trash dumps. And as I'm looking out, I see these huge plumes of smoke going up into the air from these coal factories. And I'm just thinking as I'm looking at that, like, how do people really sit here and not see what I'm seeing right now? How are you able to continue to deny this, even with the something as simple as the change in weather? The change in weather over like from the time that I was a kid until now has been so drastic. The seasons basically almost don't even exist anymore. When we were kids, they taught us spring, summer, fall, winter. I mean, those seasons are just so meshed together and, interwoven that we don't even know what a real season is anymore.
Well, I know down here in Alabama, at least, the seasons pretty much go cold as hell winter. There's like 2 days of spring, and then there's pretty much hell during the summer. It's hell, and then there's like 2 days of fall, and then it's just there's White Walkers everywhere around here. I mean, it's just crazy. Oh man! All right, so let's not spend too much on this, because we got a lot to get into, a lot to unpack. I know the first thing if you don't mind, what I was going to cover is the Confederate flag.
Go ahead.
I stumbled across an article today that really laid out because I know that I have been wondering, why has the Confederate battle flag become the flag to represent the Confederate States of America? And I had no idea. I had plans to go and research this, but I didn't have time. Luckily, though, National Geographic has actually went in and done this for us. And let me pull it up. Boom. Why the Confederate flag made a 20th century comeback. And it's actually pretty interesting, if you ask me.
Well, I was going to ask you, now, when you say the Confederate battle flag, are you talking about one of the 5 different flags that they actually flew on the battlefield, or are we talking about the Dixie flag?
Well, I'm not sure which one you're meaning, but by Confederate battle flag, I'm talking about it's the one that's normally ascribed to as being the Confederate flag today, but it was actually a Confederate battle flag, not the Confederate battle flag, but I guess it's the one of the 5 that you're talking about.
Is it the one in the image there?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't know if if that's what you're gonna talk about, but that's not one of the original Confederate flags.
No. It's not. That's the point of the article, though.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to jump ahead of you. I just making sure we're going in the same direction here.
Right. They basically lay out this whole thing where, basically, this flag was used during the Civil War as a battle flag, right? And it was only used by one particular army. It happened to be one of the biggest armies in the Civil War that was using it, but or battalions or whatever, regiments. Anyways, so they were using it as their battle flag. And so what ended up happening is that, the Confederate States ended up working the flag into their final version of their flag a little bit. And so that's where that pretty much stopped. But then there was a resurgence just after World War II. And it happened because of a political party that doesn't exist anymore called the Dixiecrats. And what they were doing is that they were actually rebelling against the Democrats of the time. And in order to denote that, they chose the Confederate battle flag. It was a way to say that they were rebelling against the Democrats. They were splitting. They were seceding from them. And then, after that, it really took up this very racist meaning because it really sprung to life in the 1950s during the Civil Rights Movement, and it was used to promote, this sense of it was used to promote this sense of rebelling against the government, basically rebelling against government regulations and decisions and whatnot. So I mean, they were quite literally using it to denote, hey, we don't like what the government's doing, so we're rebelling right now. We're showing how displeased we are because you're wanting to give the African American community equal rights. So a lot of people are saying that this flag represents our community and our history and states' rights and all this other stuff. But no, that's not at all how it researched. That's not at all what it meant. And even if you want to try to use it in that way now, it didn't even become relevant because of the way you think it was. It would be like me redefining rape to mean something consensual. I mean, you can't really redefine it in that way, in my opinion. But let's bring up another part of the article.
Yeah, here we go. There's the main point.
Yeah. The Confederate flag today wasn't actually the flag of the Confederacy. It was a flag of Robert E. Lee's Northern Virginia Army. So why do we think that it's the Confederate flag? Like I said, the appropriate name is the Confederate battle flag. Let let me refresh my memory. Let's see. Yeah, in that second paragraph there, in the years after the war, the Confederate battle flag was probably less displayed than it is today. But after World War II, as indicated before, it had a second life. And that life was associated with a defiance of the federal government and opposition to the civil rights and racial equality of the African American population in the South. So this flag that people are trying to fly everywhere is wholly and utterly racist in origin and everything. It's only relevant today because of racism.
I agree. And I think the good point that you basically made here, and technically that flag, the way it's displayed, wasn't even his flag either. There were some variations of the different flags, but the point being here is that this flag had a resurgence in, what was it, the 40s or the 50s? I think it was the 40s.
48.
Yeah, in the late 40s. And I haven't even read this article, but I know a little bit. This flag is kind of sort of just harkens back to the days of when the Union tried to tell the states what they were going to do. This is what you're going to do. Like, no, 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 big government, you can't tell me what to do. They did the same exact thing with civil rights. They were trying to say, no, 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 you don't get to tell us what to do. I think that it's ironic that they brought back an image from the Confederacy to serve as the flag. And that should tell you exactly the way they felt and just how foundational racism was to their includence of that flag.
Yeah. I honestly, I always figured that it had a very racist background to it, and there's one thing to say, oh, that's got to be racist because of the Civil War, but it's one thing to say that, but then to actually know how it came to resurge and have these facts to back it up makes it even better in my opinion. But let's see. It actually goes on to say how it's been meant or used in the past few decades. And actually, the South Carolina, back in 2000, they tried to compromise with taking it down off the Capitol dome, but they just put it right smack dab on the Capitol grounds. So even more people could see it and revel in the racist symbology of it. And a point down here that the author makes, he says, it remained a contentious issue for the past 15 years because if you're African American and you walk by that flag, it's a government endorsement of slavery and white supremacy. For African Americans, that's what the flag stood for, and that's what the flag stands for. And the history of the flag certainly undergirds that interpretation. Now, there are certain people in the black community that do support the Confederate flag, like they fly it. Either they had family members that fought in the Civil War way back when, or whatever, but they're proud of it. What do you think about that, Aylis?
Well, okay, so to be perfectly honest with you, you know that I was raised in the South, and the Confederate flag, I think what a lot of people do is they don't know history, okay? And so when they think of the Confederacy and what they stood for, and they see this Confederate flag, they're attributing what they think about the Confederacy to that flag, not realizing that that flag was created and solely was inspired by anti-civil rights movements. Now, as far as the actual people who want to fly the Confederate flag because of the Confederacy, one of the best papers that I ever wrote in my life was a paper on why the Civil War was not about slavery or racism. And you can do a little research for yourself, but there's many reasons why. Slavery didn't even become an issue until like halfway or three-quarters of the way through. Many of the greatest generals that served in the Confederacy were African Americans. Just different things like that. But I think that if people want to fly the flag for whatever reason, they should be able to fly the flag. But you should never fly the flag on public property. No matter what you think the flag stands for, the Confederate flag is a flag that really represents, no matter what your personal thoughts about it are, it represents a country divided. And we're no longer a country divided. So even promoting that on public property is an insult to all of us who are still trying to unify this country and make great changes, such as we have with the recent ruling on same sex marriage. So, personally, it's an insult to freedom and it's an insult to a unified country that is being more progressive in paving our way into the future.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, and I want to state that, um, I definitely agree that people can fly it on their own property if you want to, but just I guess I just want people to be very knowledgeable about how it came to be known as the Confederate flag or representing the Confederacy. And the only reason why it's relevant today is because of racism. And I just find it really funny that people can't see that. Like if you were to say, "Hey, we're going to start discriminating against African Americans again. We're just going to start segregating them." I guarantee you, most of the population would be like, "No, we're not going to do that. That's stupid." But yet, when you bring up something else like LGBT rights, of course, a good portion of the United States is going to have a problem.
I knew a lot of people who were not racist who flew the Confederate flag, the one that we're talking about right now, not the actual battle flags. I knew a lot of black people that flew the flags. I knew a black guy from North Carolina that had it on the back of his truck. He had the whole tailgate was that Confederate flag. I think that it means a lot of things for a lot of different people, but I think that we do need to educate people on the origins of that particular flag. If you, I'm going to frown on you if you fly that flag, but I'm going to explain why because I think people really don't know why. Now, if you were going to fly one of the actual original battle flags, I would still tell you what I thought about it, but I would actually be more in support of you flying that flag if you knew your history and what it was actually about. Because just because I'm telling you about these people that have flown the flag, just because their love of the South or whatever other reason, against big government and in favor of states' rights, there are just as many people that are flying that flag for racist purposes.
Yep. That's completely right. I mean, if you just look at the KKK, I mean, there's plenty of those groups that fly that particular flag, with racial intent in mind. Supporting the idea of slavery and that white people are so much better than black people for whatever reason. I don't even want to try to understand what the reason is for that, but Um, Anyways, so it's about a half hour into the show, so let's go on ahead. Let's move into the next topic, which is Aeolus's topic, actually, and it's Jesus Camp for Adults.
Oh.
Yeah, we have a video for this. Now, let's see. While I get the audio worked up, Aeolus, do you kind of want to give everybody an intro into this?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So there's this guy. I don't know if you guys can see him yet, but when you do, you'll see his smug little face pop up. Basically, his idea is that he's creating this kind of sort of this camp, this outreach group in which they're trying to draw in as many pastors as they can. Their initial goal is 1,000. And what they want to do is transition these pastors from pastoral roles into political roles, such as school boards, mayors, even Congress. And basically what they want to do is reclaim the country for God. So, G, you around the video yet, or you need me to keep stalling?
No. I think I might have it. Let me. It should be getting piped through on your end, so let me know if it's not. Okay.
Hey everybody, Brody File
I got it.
on location here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This is Digital First. We're digital, we're first, digital first. We're exclusive. This is exclusive. We're at the Baton Rouge River Center, and we got the whole gang here, Amber C. Strong, Steve, Mark, everybody here. The gang's all here. And why are we here? Well, we're going to take you inside. The Brody File cameras everywhere. Take a look at this video. We are inside a pastor's training seminar. These are pastors all across the country that are thinking about running for political office, and they've been praying about it for months. And this is an American renewal project headed up by David Lane. He's the organizer. David, a good friend. We had a chance to speak to him about the purpose behind this.
I'm a political operative, as you know. People think I'm a pastor. I saw that the skills of a successful politician are the same skills of a successful pastor. The skill set is about the same. So I got to thinking about it, and I thought, what if 1,000 pastors were to run in 2016 who felt like the Lord wanted them to run for school board, city councilman, county commissioner, mayor, Congress? And what if they did half as good as my pastor, and that is they averaged 300 volunteers per candidate? In 2016, that would be 300,000 grassroots precinct level conservatives coming up from the bottom. It would change America.
Game changer.
And I think that's what the Lord gave me. People that get elected at what level, at the lowest level, is real critical, because they're building bases who over time, they've gone from city council to mayor to state representative to the state senate. Now they're a congressman. Well, if they started at the bottom and they believe nothing what we believe, you're just putting people who don't have our values. Somebody's values are going to reign supreme. Our values or somebody else's values. It's our goal to bring spiritual men and women into the civil government arena.
Well, this event, by the way, is called the Issachar Training Event. Issachar meaning the men of Issachar from the Bible. Those men of Issachar basically were men who knew the times and then they acted. And that's what at least David Lane and others hope will happen here, that these pastors will rise up more men of God, women of God, in positions of power, in politics all across the country. And so that Brody File, bringing it to you straight, it's exclusive. We're in Baton Rouge. What do you want? I mean, it's great. See you.
Okay, so the thing that pisses me off even more than them attempting to subvert and sabotage our civil government by including pastors in it, that they are pretending and masquerading and parading around thinking that they have some kind of monopoly on good human values. It's not your values or our values, it's good human values. And he didn't say the word, but if he did, I was going to go full rant mode on what the Christian values from the Bible actually are. So thankfully he didn't say that, and I don't have to go on a full rant, but I do want to say that you motherfuckers don't have a monopoly on good human values. They belong to everybody. And just because your religion has become civilized in recent years doesn't mean that we're going to forget what it actually stood for thousands of years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't believe, because, you know, a lot of them today are trying to make it out to be like, well, Christianity did this and this and that for the, you know, women's suffrage movement. They did this and this and that for the, you know, for the civil rights movement. And they would show these pictures of like pastors walking in these desegregation rallies or whatnot. But it's like, you know, you can't use that, in my opinion, because on the other side of it, you also had people of your exact faith that were using it against you. So it's kind of like it has a canceling out effect. Like, yeah, you were doing it, but you weren't doing it because you were Christian. You were doing it because you're a good fucking person. And I just think that you need to acknowledge that. That's what I think. As far as the civil rights things go in the past. But now this particular thing, I have a lot of opinions on this particular subject, because I mean, me personally, I feel that if you're going to have a wholly religious position running for office, you should be like immediately disqualified. Like not like officially disqualified, but like in the minds of the voters, they should immediately disqualify anybody that starts saying, "Well, God is my number one priority." And that is exactly the kind of people that these people are trying to push out there into the political sphere. They want people that are going to be like, God is first. I stand by my Bible.
Well, see, that's the other thing too, is that they try so hard to in, intertwine church and state when they don't realize that the separation of church and state doesn't help us as much as it helps you. You know, it helps you so much to not have the government involved in your church. You know, but the minute that they say, "Oh, you want to become politically involved, I guess we're going to have to take away your tax exempt status," and then they're going to go, "Oh, freedom of religion, freedom of religion, separation of church and state."
Persecution.
Yeah, and it's like you trust me, you get so many benefits from the government not being in your religion that you should be happy that they're not in it. I mean, basically everything that the government touches becomes a failed organization. It becomes a very corrupt and, you know, basically destroyed from the foundation up. And you want that involved in your church? I mean, you should be happy that and here's another possible outcome when you start intertwining church and state is that some church that has some crazy fucking Christian ideas that you don't agree with becomes the mainstream. And then they're forcing this shit on you and telling you you have to practice it in your church. Like, that is what the inclusion of church and state, or the intertwining of church and state, does. It does some really bad. All you got to do is just sit down and do a little thought experiment on what would happen if church and state were intertwined. I did it and it freaked me out, and then I realized just how great they have it by not having the government involved in their religion.
Well, I mean, if you just think about it, there's Pastor Steven Anderson, you know, out in New Mexico. I know I bring this guy up a lot, but he is the perfect example of why we don't need religion in politics, why we shouldn't have religion in politics, because everybody feels that their stance on religion religion in general, Christianity, is the correct one. Like, that's the only one that you can have. A lot of them don't feel like, you know, there are different interpretations of their own religion. So, you know, if you just take Pastor Steven Anderson, I mean, do you really want him in any kind of political power? Like, do you want him in any kind of political seat? Not that he would ever run for it or anything like that, but I'm talking about the type of person that would listen to him. He preaches that homosexuals need to be drug out into the streets and shot. He thinks that homosexuality should be a death penalty worthy offense. Do you really want somebody, not saying that there aren't people in there right now that are like that, but do you want a significant portion of our political bodies to be voted in and be those types of people? If you get enough people in there like that, then you're going to end up with very, very bad policies and just horrible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a stone's throw away before they're like, well, we might as well get rid of shellfish too. And then, I mean, you know, anything that's in the Bible, it can get crazy from there.
Well, I mean, you know, it doesn't stop at homosexuals in the Bible either. I mean,
Right, it can keep going.
well, no, right, and I'm just saying this because Steven Anderson brings this up in his sermons, that he feels that, you know, those that cheat on their wives and husbands, they should be killed as well. I mean, he is full, like, Bible thumping traditional Christian, and he thinks that all of that still applies.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, but I mean, look at what happened in 2014. You know, we got all these crazy mofos like Klingenschmidt and other people like that are running for office. And it just seems like, to me, this is actually a brilliant idea for them. I mean, not that I like it, but I'm saying that what he's saying, if they do it and they pull it off, it's probably going to work. It's a terrible idea because of the repercussions that we're going to suffer if they are successful. And I'm afraid that it's possible for them to be successful. And it's sad that I have to say that in 2015, that some nut jobs like this are going to be in a political office. But I mean, what do you expect when we've got people like Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Ben Carson, and other idiots like this running for the president? What are you going to expect from a lower level of Congress? The same exact bullshit.
Yeah. And let's see, asshole Inc. in the comments said, but Anderson will never do it. Exactly. That's why, if you just take Anderson as an example, I mean, he has people in his congregation, and he has sprouted spores off. Case in point is Donnie Romero. He was he was under the tutelage of Steven Anderson, and now he's got his own church, and he's out there spouting the same shit that Anderson's spouting. So I mean, these people are they gain traction whenever people allow them to not only speak, but allow them to get inside their heads and really start convincing them. And that kind of brings me into one contention that I have with this article, and that's when this guy says skills of a successful politician are the same skills of a successful pastor. But the skills of a successful politician are the same skills of a successful pastor, as the same skills as a CEO of a business, as the same skills of anybody in a position where you have to lead others. I mean, that's the common denominator there, is being able to lead others and persuade others, being good at public speaking, and not necessarily policy making, because if you really think about it, what kind of policies does a pastor make? I mean, it's not like he can converse with God and be like, hey, God, I've got a little bit of a problem with this verse. It tells me that I should kill homosexuals and people that fuck the neighbor. I don't know about that, God. I think we need to write an amendment. Oh, there's no amendments in the Bible? Well, crap. My training did not really get me ready for this.
Actually, I actually kind of have to agree with him here on the fact that being a pastor contains the same skill set as being a politician. Only if you are legitimately performing the duties of a pastor, which is caring and nurturing for a flock. This includes, going to extracurricular functions. This includes visiting people in the hospital, basically caring for the people in your jurisdiction. It'd be the same exact thing for a politician if and only if that politician is actually doing those things. We have very few politicians that are actually going out there in getting their hands dirty and actually caring for the people. A good example is Bernie Sanders and what he did in Immokalee, Florida. That's not even in his state, and he's going out into this country and doing different things like that.
Well, in case people don't know, can you kind of elaborate a little bit on what Bernie did?
Oh, okay. So in Immokalee, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, they had basically modern day slavery going on. They had illegal immigrants who they were forcing to work without pay, basically kidnapping and enslavement. And he went down there with a few other people, and then he brought it back to the Senate, and they changed a lot of things. They went down there and they actually got these people some working rights. They got them unionized and different things like that. If you want to learn more about that, you can just Google it. I'm not too in the know on that story, but I just wanted to give a simple example of how a politician's duties could be considered similar to a pastor's duties, which is actually taking care of people. But if and only if, as I said, they're actually doing that duty, because we know that you've got many televangelists and these mega church pastors. And, there's no way that they're actually doing that. There's no way that they're actually caring for the flock and doing things for the people. And, I was going to be a pastor one day. So I actually, and I was a youth minister. And I like to talk about that a little bit, about how when I was a youth minister, I was very involved with all the people that were, in my ministry. So going to baseball games with the kids, going to their practices, after school tutoring, different functions with their families. So I don't know, man. I think that he's actually right, but if and only if he means it in the way I presented it. Now, if he just means that, and now here's the other way in which the skill set could be the same. Now, if we're talking about the standard politician and the standard pastor, which lie to their people, which try to hide the truth as much as possible, I mean, I guess, I guess he's kind of right there too.
Well, I don't know. That still just seems like characteristics of a leader, like a leader in a community. Because like a leader in a community doesn't just sit back and take care of himself and make sure the community keeps running or whatnot. I mean, he's actually got to, if you're going to be a good leader and a leader that people can trust and really connect with, you're going to be going out and trying and actually talking with them and trying to help where you feel that help is needed, kind of like what Bernie Sanders did down in Florida, going down there, seeing what needs to be done and then taking action to do it. See, I don't know. That doesn't seem really like a pastor to me. That seems like more like a leader. And I'm not saying that pastors aren't leaders. I think that pastors are definitely leaders, but they're only one type of leader. And
Right.
to say that. So I guess technically looking at it, the skills of a
Well, the
successful.
other example that you gave was a CEO, in which I was going to kind of sort of disagree with that, just because like a CEO is not really there to care about the people. He's there for the continuing success of the business, and sometimes that's at the expense of the people. And
Well, no.
so,
Well, true. Sorry to cut you off there, but if you're like a good CEO or a good boss, I mean, you're going to want to listen to your employees. You're going to want to try to provide the best working environment that you can. That's not always the same. Just like with pastors, they're not always good.
right,
I
see,
mean,
that's why I put that if and only if statement in there. So it could apply to the CEO as well, if and only if he's adhering to the definition as you supplied it.
right,
Which we know
exactly.
most of them aren't, just like most of the politicians aren't, and most of the pastors aren't. That's one of the things that disappoints me is that look, we have a system where there are hundreds and thousands of churches around the United States. We have a system where all of these pastors are in power. It's not just going to go away tomorrow. So, like, one of the things that I've been focused on lately, especially since I actually am in contact with a pastor now who thinks that I'm not a bad guy just because I'm an atheist, is, maybe talking to some of these pastors and having them actually do things that are beneficial to the community and actually teaching people about secularism and why secularism is important to a religious believer. There are many benefits that the religious receive from living in a secular country. And I think that, we want all the churches to go away tomorrow. That's extremely unlikely. So why not reach out to these people that are actually influencing and in some cases even dictating what people think about politics, religion, atheist, secularism.
Right. It might be a good idea to point out why Mike Huckabee might be the forefront or the face of this whole thing. Um, I'm not exactly sure why in the article they're putting his face on it, but what I would think would be the reason why is because Mike Huckabee has really been pushing this idea of a secular theocracy, and how people are, the liberals or Democrats or whoever is trying to make a secular theocracy in the United States. And I honestly I have no idea what they mean other than we're just trying to keep the states original to what the Constitution says, or change the Constitution to update it with our current social structure. What do you think he could mean by a secular theocracy?
I mean, I think we've kind of addressed that before. And It's well, I mean, you just look at the word. It's obviously an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a secular theocracy. You've either got a secular foundation or you've got a theocratic one. A theocracy means that whatever religion or theistic beliefs become the foundation of your country. Thankfully, we don't have a theocracy, and whatever he's trying to build here to mesh secularism and theism, it's not going to work very well, because the truth of the matter is, yes, we have a lot of indoctrinated and really silly people here in the United States. But as you can see with recent polls, the nuns are on the rise. You know, it's not going to be long before we become nearly 50% of the population. What are we, like 30% already?
Yeah.
It's not going to be long before we become 50% of the population. And for me, that gives me a lot of hope that perhaps, in my lifetime, I may see a different country. So I'm not even taking him seriously at all when he says a secular theocracy. I know he's only tending to a few hardcore right wing nut jobs when he says that.
Well, so I
And
mean, you don't think that he's really like he's reaching a much more a much wider crowd?
I don't think so.
Well,
That's
I
just
don't.
me personally, though. But do you think that he's able to reach a wider crowd with that?
I think he has the possibility to, because I know that I know a lot of people. The last time Huckabee ran, I know a lot of people, just in my area in general, were rooting for him pretty hard. So that's not to say that he was very, very popular. Obviously, he wasn't. But I'm wondering if maybe since he's ran before, he might have a little bit bigger pull, and that kind of scares me a little bit.
I'm actually a little more afraid of Donald Trump. And the reason why I say that is because he doesn't have to. He doesn't give a fuck about anyone paying him or what the people think. He's already rich. So he just goes out there and he says whatever the fuck he wants. And the thing about that is it's things that these Republicans want to say, but they know that they can't say it. They gotta try their best. I mean, here's the example. He's using secular theocracy. He's trying to pander to two different crowds in an attempt to get them to maybe reconcile what they think, and both of those groups vote for him. Donald Trump doesn't have to worry about that. He just goes out there and says whatever the fuck he wants. And when we see that he is like rising in the polls and he's going to be like the number one Republican candidate soon, that's kind of scary. Like the fact
So
that he's gaining so much popularity, that worries me more than Mike Huckabee.
is he really gaining that much popularity?
He was number 2 like 2 weeks ago, only trailing behind Jeb Bush,
I
only
think
by like 1%.
I don't know. I think Jeb Bush is probably going to win out on the Republican nomination, unless somebody else comes out. Because I know Rick Perry. I think he's running again, right? But I mean, come on, he'll forget that there are three branches of the government, and he'll be out in the first debate.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other thing too. Like, if Donald Trump actually makes it to the debates, I think he'll gain more support. I think he'll definitely become the number one. But how serious is he? Because he's done this the past 2 election cycles, but I don't think he was really being serious. Then I'm afraid he may discover like he's the number one Republican in the country, and then he's like, "Hey, they really do like me. Let me actually really pursue this."
Well, now, I think that you're probably right. There is that he's probably a bit more serious about this of the fact that he got let go from, what was it, NBC, for his show because of his I think it was because of his racist comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I
got
mean,
let
he
go.
just goes out there and he says, whatever he wants. Fuck Hispanics. And they're like, whoa, Donald Trump. I'm like, are you serious? Are there people that really think this? We're going to build a great fucking wall between here and Mexico. Ah, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump gonna build that wall.
And then he's like, yeah, and it's going to create thousands of jobs. And they're just like, woo, jobs!
You know, I mean, if they build, I don't care how big you build a wall, people are just going to climb over it. Even if it's a metaphorical wall, people are still going to be able to get over that wall.
I don't know. I mean, I thought maybe he was still joking, but it seems that it's pretty serious right now. And I'm sure we'll see like the next poll maybe in like the next couple weeks. Because the primary is when? The primary is it February?
I don't know. It could be.
Somebody will correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong about this. I think I am. I'm not even sure. I may have just pulled that out of my ass. But the primary is coming soon, and that comes with debates and other things. So we'll see what happens. I know right now that based on the Electoral College, that if it stays exactly the same, that a Republican can't win
Oh, you
in
think so?
2016. Well, I think they only have 160 votes last time I checked. So it's impossible for them to win. But you know, the Electoral College switches all around between now and the election.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Well,
think, though, I think that Bernie Sanders might have this one. And if he asks Elizabeth Warren to be his vice president, then he definitely has it. If she agrees. But
well,
man, the support for him is crazy. He's breaking records every time he does speeches. He's,
yeah.
you know, they're not reporting him on mainstream media, but more people are watching him on, you know, YouTube and live streams and things like that than they're watching the news.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sorry, I was reading the comments. Torva says, teaching pastors to be politicians? Is there a difference in the Republican Party? And before the internet says that metaphorical walls are meant to be metaphorically torn down. But I guess let's go ahead and head on into your favorite part of the show.
Oh yeah, it's time for the hypocrite of the week. Woo! This week's hypocrite of the week is going to a pastor. Are we still doing the one that was accused of voyeurism?
Yes. Hold on. Let me. I'm still sorry. I'm still working on getting it up. I for some reason didn't get a capture of it going. So.
All the people are like, "Oh, voyeurism! It's finally a pastor who's not a pedophile." Nope, you're wrong. He actually is a pedophile. Sorry, but that's just how it is. There's 5 a day. You know, we don't have much to choose from. You know. And I'm not laughing at the crime either. I'm laughing at the ridiculousness that we have to continue to address this every week. Go ahead, G.
Yeah, let's see. Church music pastor accused of voyeurism. Congregation spokeswoman knows of no evidence of voyeurism on church property, but the scope of the allegation remains unknown as the investigation continues. Let's see.
Hey, Dieter's not here, so I can say he just looks like a pedophile.
Great. Now
what's up with the freaky eyes? What's up with the freaky eyes?
Well, luckily, we're not going to be going into another 2-hour rant about this. So, Craig Burden was fired Friday from his post as music pastor of Calvary Baptist Church in West Lafayette, a day after he was accused of voyeurism with a camera. The 28-year-old was booked out 8 p.m. into Tippecanoe County Jail, where he's being held without bond on allegations of vicarious sexual gratification involving a victim younger than 14, according to jail records. Tippecanoe County records, county sheriff's deputies were notified Thursday evening of the alleged offenses, Lieutenant Lehman said on Saturday. Multiple detectives are working the case and will resume their investigation Monday in coordination with the Tippecanoe County Prosecutor's Office, but available information remains quite limited at this point. Let's see. When the voyeurism allegedly took place remains unclear. It's not a one-time incident, Lehan said. Daniel Berry, Calvary's lead pastor since 2013, had placed Burden on suspension Thursday when allegations of wrongdoing were raised, said a spokeswoman. Burden's employment was terminated in case of in an emergency meeting. We get an emergency. Somebody's been fucking the children, or well, looking at the children naked. On behalf of the church staff, Berry issued a statement Saturday referring all questions to Garwood, an attorney who represents the congregation and has been a member for about a decade. Garwood said police were permitted to inspect the church's property at blah, 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 to her knowledge, although the investigation is incomplete. Oh, crap. I forgot to scroll down. We don't know enough, she added. We don't know if the church was at any risk. Burden's arrest comes just shy of 1 year after former Lafayette pastor Robert Lysinga was sentenced to prison for installing hidden cameras disguised as air fresheners in a woman's restrooms inside Sunrise Christian Reformed Church in 2011 and 2012. Really?
You remember the guy with the alarm clocks?
The guy with the alarm clocks.
He had hidden cameras in the alarm clocks for ventilation.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so this is not like a rare thing. I mean, this is happening more and more.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, everybody's complaining. Paranor said, scroll, dang it. Let's see. Burden, who has not been formally charged with a crime, was fired because of inappropriate behaviors for which he's being investigated are at odds with the church interpretation of biblical teaching. Really? You can't just say, hey, you've been looking at kids naked. You don't need to work here anymore. He was fired because of inappropriate behaviors for which he's at odds. Okay. So, I mean, if that's their criteria, then anybody checking out the ass of the choir girl, even though she's of age, could be, thrown out. But I'm not defending this guy in any sense. I'm criticizing their lack of specificity.
Well, then it gets even worse when they say any form of exploitation of a person is, we think, a violation of biblical principles. What about the exploitation of women, or what about the exploitation of slaves?
Well, yeah, what? Any form that doesn't comport with the Bible. The Bible gives specific rules on how to beat your slaves so that you don't get in trouble and the slaves don't die.
Right. Now, if they personally believe something different, they can say a violation of our church principles, but they can't use the biblical principles argument.
Yeah. Hopefully we're gonna figure it out here in a second there, Hector. He asked how did they find these cameras. Let's see, Burden was hired as a Calvary's full-time worship pastor in 2013. Yeah, they can see that. In a video posted to the church YouTube account last fall, Burden said that he and his family began attending the services Calvary 15 years ago. He first played with the church band as a drummer, then interned with the congregation at age 19. Burden said in the video that he attends church with his wife and aims to mentor younger musicians, just as he was mentored into his most recent position. Now I'm wondering, was that positioned at all naked and doggy style? Because, they might be taking this whole do unto others as you would have them do unto you thing a little too seriously. Or inappropriately. He previously served as worship leader for Seacoast Church in South Carolina. Hector, that's your area of the world. As of Saturday morning, the church's website featured multiple promotional photos of Burden playing guitar, but the site appeared to contain no mention of his name. His headshot was published on the staff bio page, but his name and email address were missing. Woo! Scrubbed him. All photos of Burden were scrubbed from the site by midday afternoon. Garwood said a total of about 500 to 700 people participate in the church's 4 Sunday morning services each week, 8, 9, 10, 15, 11:30 a.m., with attendance on the lower end of the spectrum during summer months when Purdue University isn't in session. Members and attendees were notified of the allegations made against Burden, so organizers are preparing for services this Sunday to include a period. I needed to scroll. Scroll, dang it. Members and attendees were notified of the allegations made against Burden, so it's a difficult time for the church. Yeah, it's not saying how they exactly found them. Apparently, he was. Somebody made an allegation against him, and so they're having to investigate that and see if he was actually doing it. But I think that these allegations probably have a lot of merit, considering that they have completely separated themselves from this guy. What do you think, Alice?
Yeah, I think that, like you said, they basically scrubbed him. And so we know that when pastors have these types of allegations against them, most of the time it turns out that the allegations are proven to be actual incidents that have occurred. And that's not saying that this pastor is guilty at all of what happened. That just says that the statistics concerning these acts are not in his favor. And so it's most likely that he has done this. And, we saw one quote from a person who said it's not the first incident. So it's probably, been multiple incidents of this happening. But, I'm really wondering if we're not just kind of setting ourselves up for failure here. We've mentioned this in the past, but I was really thinking about it tonight as you were talking about it, about how when you have one-on-one relationships with people, and before I even get into this, I'm not justifying what this pastor has done. I'm not saying that it's okay, but I have had one-on-one relationships with teachers, instructors, doctors, personal trainers, and if that person is a member of the opposite sex, it's almost likely that at some point in that relationship, some kind of sexual incident occurs. I mean, even between me and my doctor. Like, it was a very uncomfortable moment where she made a sexual joke and gave me the sex face. And you can laugh about that.
You mean the O face? Like,
No, it wasn't that. But there was some lip biting going on. But
okay.
But what I'm getting at here is that, are we setting ourselves up for failure here? Because we know, I mean, that's why every time you go see a doctor, a psychologist, you hire someone for services from a company, there's almost always a disclosure or a restriction on having a personal relationship with the client, with the customer or whatever. But pastors don't really have that. So, not saying that the inclusion of some kind of language in their contract or whatever would prevent this from happening. But we really got to sit down and think about it. Are we really setting ourselves up for this? We know that these pastors are having interactions with members of their congregation on a personal level. Some of them are opening themselves up emotionally. Usually, that's what happens. They're opening themselves up. They're confiding in someone, and at some point, some kind of sexual incident is going to occur. And we're relying on these pastors to handle it gracefully. And what's happening is that they're not. Not only are they not handling these situations gracefully, they're fucking setting up air freshener cameras in bathrooms and shit. Alarm clock cameras guised as ventilation tools, for the bathroom.
Okay, now wait, hold on. Now this pastor, he was just trying to catch Jesus in the act of, of mentoring these girls. I mean, that's all. Or guys, I don't know where the cameras were or his orientation, but he was just wanting to catch Jesus in the act. I mean, you always hear about Jesus filling people up with the Spirit and everything like that. Maybe he thought the Spirit was actually some cum.
Hey, Jamathi says, fuck your doctor then in the poop hole if you're into that. Funny story, man. Funny story. It's just a little off topic. But
funny story. I did. No.
This happens to be the same doctor who stuck her finger in my butt. She would not give up on the opportunity to do that. I kept telling her, I was like, listen, there's nothing wrong with my colon. I'm almost absolutely sure that I have appendicitis. I'm like, look, just do an ultrasound or whatever the thing is that you need to send me to do. I'm pretty sure I got appendicitis. She's like, nope, we got to check the colon. We got to go in there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So, yeah, she did it. She got a lot of enjoyment out of that.
So okay, wait. Let me see if I can reenact her face. Like, David, we need to check your colon. No, quit fighting it. Quit fighting it. You know you want it.
It was, I'm not saying it was that bad, but she definitely wanted to do it. And, you know, I don't know, man. But to get back on kind of on topic here.
Hey, if you don't want me to comment on this kind of stuff, you shouldn't bring it up.
That's true. I shouldn't have said anything, but I thought that the people would get a little kick out of that.
I got a kick out of it, but yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead.
You sure you didn't get a rise out of it?
No, not a rise.
Not a rise. But seriously though, are we really setting ourselves up for this? We know. I mean, I was really thinking about that while you were talking. Like, I just, sat here and thought about this. Is definitely going to happen to a pastor. Why are they not being equipped with the tools to handle these situations a little bit better? And go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say they feel like they are equipped with the tools. That's the problem.
But they're consistently failing. I mean, it's like every day we get 5 different pastors, or sometimes more. I got the Google alert the other day that had like 13 pastors that were brought up on child sexual abuse charges.
Yeah, but just think for a minute. As a Christian, what theoretically, what would a Christian say is the problem here? That he's not being a Christian, or he's not being Christian-like or whatnot, right? So he failed at being a Christian, and they feel like, at least in my view of it, they feel like being a Christian and submitting yourself to Christ should be enough to keep you from doing this stuff, because they had this whole concept of, well, you can only get morality from religion, you can only get morality from God, and so they feel like. It's kind of like they feel like they've been given the tools, but yet they're failing to use the tools appropriately. And so all they do is they put the blame back on the person that did it, which the blame should be on him, but also they should recognize that it's this obviously isn't working. This whole just, we'll leave it to God kind of mentality isn't working, and they should really develop some kind of programs to help train them in the correct way to go about handling it when these situations come up.
Well, they can't do that, because then they basically have to admit that this is a serious problem with priests and pastors. And I don't think that they're willing to admit that. And, you are almost getting ready to get into it, but this is further complicated by the fact that what they do is, since their moral code and their moral authority comes from the religion, they ask for forgiveness instead of seeking actual help. And then you do your whole spiel on forgiveness about how this is basically a vicious cycle of them never actually receiving any help, but continuing to be a victim of those thoughts and creating victims by not seeking help.
Right, and potentially creating future offenders.
Right.
Because not every victim's going to turn out to be an offender, but most offenders have been victimized in the past, is how I understand it.
Right, and I'm trying really hard not to look at the comment section, because it has devolved over there to talks of buttholes and erections and all this other stuff. Yeah, we kind of derailed the show for them tonight, huh?
Well, yeah. Main Gun, he asked, why does it seem like churches seem to breed child predators? And let's see. I believe Lucy said years of perfecting the process, and Torva said because they tell the predators that Jesus will forgive all their sins, which is exactly what Aeolus was talking about. There is that it's a vicious cycle of forgiveness. They ask for forgiveness. They think that just because they have recommitted themselves to Christ, so that they're coming to Christ or whatever they do, that it's going to change them, but it just simply doesn't. You can't just willfully change that kind of thing. I mean, it takes a struggle. It's not like you can just be like, oh, yep, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not even going to look at these cameras after tonight.
But I think too, like just for example, if you compare and contrast a teacher's position with the pastor's position or the youth minister's position, even better. What you're realizing here is that the one-on-one relationship between a youth pastor is totally different than the one-on-one relationship with a teacher. Most times, a child is not going to be opening up emotionally to a teacher. But that is almost like nearly, I would say, 90% of the interactions that a youth minister or a youth pastor is going to have with youth of his church. And so that's what I'm saying. It's almost as if this is, I don't want to say expected, but it's almost, they need something. They need something that, I don't know, maybe they need training or something.
Well, William Walters in the comments, he puts it pretty well. People who feel pedophile urges think that God will help them resist it. Join a church and get into the leadership. But God doesn't actually exist, so they don't get the help. And they act on the urges. I think that's a pretty good outline of this vicious cycle that we're talking about here. Is that they feel these urges, whether it be pedophile or just sexual in nature. They feel these urges and they get into these. They commit themselves wholly to these organizations, and they commit themselves so well that they get put in leadership positions, and then they have that power position where they can exert some control over somebody. And a lot of the rape, a lot of the rapist I guess drive comes from being able to overpower or control others.
I think you hit something there very profound when you were reading that and kind of correlating it with what you thought. Is that I really believe that you're right. I never thought about it that way before, about how they may be trying to really seek help for their issues, and in doing so, they just become so outwardly involved in their church that they become a leader, because maybe they really think that this is going to work for them and it's going to help them when it really doesn't. But in doing so, they just become such a prominent member of their church. I never thought about it that way, but that could be, a main contributor to these pastor and priest pedophiles.
I definitely think that it's a good possibility. But that was our hypocrite of the week. We don't have a gavel here, so Aeolus, do you want to read off the charges for hypocrite?
Okay, so for not this, he wasn't the one that had the air fresheners. He just had a camera, right? That's what I remember from the story.
There's allegations of voyeurism, and it's there's not a lot of information right now, so it's just pretty.
But it was just off of like a digital camera or something. Okay,
possible.
So for spying on members of your congregation, being children, engaging in voyeurism with cameras, hopefully only not many cameras all over your church, hopefully not at all. Hopefully you're found innocent of this. But for doing this, and with the statistics being against you as far as pastor pedophiles go, we're going to have to stamp you in advance with Hypocrite of the Week, because in 30-something episodes, we've never had to go back and correct ourselves and say that this guy wasn't a pedophile, because every damn time they've been one. Okay, so stamping him with Hypocrite of the Week, and I hope that if he is found guilty, that they deal with him sufficiently and justly and punish him for these actions and get help for him, because you can't just punish him and not make him seek help. that just creates future victims when he gets out of prison or his punishment is over.
Exactly. So I don't know if you heard that, but that was me hitting a can on a table. Hypocrite of the week. But let's see. It appears as though we have a question in the comments from Lucy. Lucy, whenever you hear this, go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll wrap up the show. So we're gonna be waiting for that. I thought about maybe playing some Deadpool after this tonight, but I'm thinking that I still need to get my Did Jesus Exist done.
Stamp him like a letter A.
Yeah.
Lick it too. Ah,
Camaraderie is the biggest sin of religion. Let's see.
Hey, I like camaraderie.
BTI in the comments. Oh yeah.
Oh man, AOLers just want to know, how does it feel to be a fat guy who can't rap? So is that what the person said? Gee,
Yeah.
did they say?
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna talk about it. Let's go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah.
Do you have his response or his comment or whatever?
Oh wait, yeah. Hold on. I do. Let me get that set up real quick.
That's rich, man. That's just rich.
Yeah, and it's in the very first little bit too.
Why don't you go ahead and pull up my Facebook page so you can see my gym selfie that I took tonight too? You should put that
Hey, guys.
alongside of his comment so we can look at how fat I am.
No. He doesn't know that you actually wrote it. He's saying
Oh,
that,
he thinks he's talking about you.
yes,
He thinks that you wrote the song and you're singing it.
right.
Ah, okay.
All right. So 1 second. Okay. You should be able to hear this. So let me know if you can. All right.
Okay.
What's up? Yes, it is your Inventor Gorilla once again on the Disposable Gorilla
Yeah, I can
channel.
hear it.
And today, I'd like to do a video response to a guy named Godless Engineer. You know, Agent of Doubt had a series called Religious Road Signs of Stupidity. And while some of those videos offended me, I have to admit that at many of them I had to chuckle, because some of them were just stupid. And that's the difference between Agent of Doubt's videos and this guy's videos. Agent of Doubt's videos were insightful and they were funny, because Agent of Doubt is actually an intelligent human being and can see irony and can be punny at the same time and
Did he
make you
just say
laugh while
punny?
offending you. That, in my book, is a definition of genius.
Oh, so
Now, this
intelligent.
guy is a napalm-looking jackass wearing a Pokemon beanie and calls himself an engineer. An engineer in what? Stupidity? I mean, let's listen to this guy's rap just really quickly. And you can judge for yourself.
From the pulpit, meet me in the comment section and you get school, bitch. The godless engineer.
So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of rap, but I know good rap from bad rap. And that is just bad rap. You know, there was no snap to it. There's no real, like, no fire to it. It was just a fat white guy trying to be cool. And then, as we move on in this video, you're going to
Okay, so he goes on and he's completely and utterly ad hom all the way.
Let's go ahead and annihilate this motherfucker. Okay, first of all, you can't make fun of somebody who has a condition. You can tell them more about that if you need to, GE. But I think most of us that know you personally know that you suffer from a condition that makes it really hard for you, and it actually makes it a lot easier for you to put on weight, and your weight fluctuates a lot.
Well, yeah. So for those of you that don't know, I have diabetes, and I have a special kind of diabetes that where I'm insulin resistant as well as my pancreas doesn't make a lot of insulin. So the problem with that is that I have to take insulin in order for that to happen, and when you take insulin, it's very easy to pack on the weight. Now, I used to be 100 pounds lighter than I am now. But when I got put on insulin, nobody told me that, hey, once you start taking this, you're going to start putting on the weight. And so I started taking it, and I put on 100 pounds, and no shit, like 3 months or so. And so, I put on all that weight, and then I had the doctor tell me, well, now we need to change these things. And if he would have just told me from the beginning that diet, exercise, and all this other stuff, instead of just immediately putting me on insulin, I possibly could have not gained that much weight, and I could have controlled it without actually having to use insulin. But because he had me on insulin, he actually screwed up. My pancreas stopped producing insulin, and so now I'm definitely having to take insulin. Because like my body was producing like more than enough insulin. It's just that my body wasn't using the insulin, and so I didn't really need insulin, and so it just had that counter reactive thing. But anyways, so yeah.
And let's also go ahead and say, how dare you make fun of someone else's appearance when you don't even fucking appear in your own goddamn video? What the fuck do you look like is the real question. Don't piss me off with this bullshit, and then don't try to make some type of correlation between whatever you think he looks like and his intelligence. Okay, I don't know specifically what GE does, but I know he's an engineer, and I know he's got his degrees in this shit, and he's demonstrated it throughout his videos that he has signs of intelligence. Obviously, you have none if the only word that you can think of is punny. That was terrible. Okay, that was some bullshit. Was that not bad? I mean, I really had to almost stop right there just because of how terrible that was. You to sit there and call someone else a genius and think that you're intelligent while insulting the intelligence of another. Let me tell you something, motherfucker. People that are actually intelligent don't go around insulting the intelligence of others. The only people that have to do that are those dumb motherfuckers that are too insecure with their own lack of intelligence that they have to berate and hassle and insult other people. So fuck you.
Oh yeah, he goes on. I mean, he calls me. Let's see. He calls me a fucktard. He keeps calling me fat fuck, referring to me being stupid, showing that at one point he says that I obviously don't have any kind of education as to what Christians actually believe. And of course, I'm attacking the dogma of the faith, and then, of course, I'm attacking the dogma of the faith. He doesn't employ the dogma like other Christians do, and so he tells me that, well, I don't know what Christians actually believe. And so it's really funny. Like, he didn't do any kind of background research on me at all. He just attacks me. I think I've been pretty forthcoming with like my education and everything like that, which, I mean, I don't have to be, but
Right, you don't have to be educated to be intelligent, but you are, and that's an added bonus. But I just feel like come on, man. are we gonna be civilized human beings here? Or are we gonna make a fucking video where you do nothing but ad hominem attacks on a person? And I didn't hear anywhere in there where he said anything about what you were saying in the video. I don't know if he
Well-
continues on to say it, but what did we just
It's-
waste 5 minutes listening to his ad hominem bullshit?
Yeah, it's 20 minutes long.
It's 20 minutes long. So what? It's like 18 minutes of ad hominem.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I know at one point I make a reference to Back to the Future, and he's like, "What do? Just sit around, watch TV, put together these shitty YouTube videos?" And the entire time I'm like, "Yep." I mean, I obviously do a lot more. I have a Facebook group that's got 10,000 people in it, which admittedly I haven't been around too much for that, but I've been focusing on, Twitter, Facebook, mostly YouTube, doing a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff with that, and my website, which I designed from scratch. So
This is the type of thing that pisses me off because he obviously knows nothing about you. And if he did know anything about you, personally, me, I aspire to have my videos look more like yours. There are several videos that you've done that I've just been like, wow, I need to get my production quality on this level. So, for people to come to my channel and say how great the production quality is, and then, for him to say this about you when you're one of the people that I've always looked up to before I even started making videos, is just some bullshit to me when he can't even do anything except a fucking screen share.
Yeah, and that's all he does too.
He doesn't
I watched-
appear in the fucking video. He doesn't have a fucking script. He's stuttering and stammering all the way through the video. Like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me started, man. Because I will assassinate your channel. All I need is GE to give me the link, and you will be on the derp of the day for the next 2 weeks.
Oh, I'll give you the link easy. I mean, not many people make responses to me, so it's pretty easy. But I'll definitely give you the link. But yeah, let's see. I know at one point he goes on to talk about how I say at one point in front of this church sign, I say, "Get up off your knees, don't pray for it, actually do shit and make things happen for you." And he stops it and he immediately goes, "Who the fuck are you to tell people what to do?" But, at the same time, he's telling me exactly what to do. Like, I shouldn't be doing this. It's like, okay, well, who the fuck are you to be telling me what to do?
I don't know, man. I hope that you didn't let it, get to you at all. I know that, for us, we like the feedback. I mean, we create videos for the people, so obviously negative feedback does get to us sometimes, but you have so much positive feedback that you shouldn't even allow a clown like this. I mean, the fact that we're sitting here clowning on this clown just shows how much we really think about his feedback.
Yeah, he says, and I'm sorry about this, guys, but he says that the skeptic and atheist community should be really embarrassed that I'm part of it, so my apologies. It hasn't bothered me one bit, whatever this guy says. I mean, like if Hector or Luke or Paranor or you had come to me and been like, "Look, dude, you're a bane on the atheist community," I would have to seriously rethink, my way about going about things. But random Christian on YouTube that has a problem with me criticizing the Christian faith, who didn't see that coming?
Just some bullshit, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, are you really going to get on a video and just attack someone for 20 minutes? I mean, come on. If you got something that you need to say, if you got some legitimate criticisms of the content that he creates other than just saying that it sucks, like, come on, let's hear what you got to say. Like, I don't want to sit here and hear 20 minutes of you talking some bullshit. So send me the link.
I will. But I know that we both need to get out of here. We have families and lives. I've got to get to my shows and, making shitty videos. And so, I hope everybody in the chat has a nice night, day, weekend. Don't forget to think skeptically, stay godless. And what do you say, Aeolus?
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
And hopefully this guy doesn't stumble upon my channel, because it's going to be much worse.
Yeah, so thanks for watching.
Reason.
Where's the stop? Stop.